think of this. So I'm not talking about dreaming big, but I want you to put that in the back of your head. Okay? Everybody see that? If you can't see it, stand up and look at it real quickly. That way you remember seeing it. And I wrote down my training word for word, just in case. And because someday I get to train on stage at Rally. That's part of my dreaming big. And when you train for Premier, you have to write down what you're going to say. You can't just stand up and talk and go off on tangents like I tend to do every time I get on stage anywhere. So it's all written. I'm going to try and read from it without doing this. All right? So first off, if it was right when you prayed about it and trusted it and lived for it, it is right now. Don't give up when the pressure mounts. You can find an apartment. You can win over your mother-in-law. You can sell your harmonica and therein fund one more meal. It's been done before. Don't give in. Certainly don't give in to that being who is bent on the destruction of your happiness. He wants everyone to be miserable like unto himself. Face your doubts. Master your fears. Cast not away, therefore, your confidence. Stay the course and see the beauty of life unfold for you. And some of you will recognize the name, but it's from Jeffrey R. Holland, who gave a devotional at BYU almost 20 years ago. I may not have joined Premier because I was prayerfully seeking for a way to help my family or myself, but almost 4 years in, I stay the course with Premier because I did start praying about it. I did start getting answers for my business, and I know that I am right where I'm supposed to be. Working with who I am supposed to work with. Building relationships with amazing women, and a few men even, that I know I'm supposed to connect with. My sponsoring journey started by accident. As most of you know, I started my business in November of 2011, but just a few short months later, I quit altogether. Not for any specific reason, just it fell by the wayside. I made a few $1,000s in that short time, but most of my business was in Arizona, because that's where most of my first shows were held. My sister-in-law, Michelle, lived in Arizona, and she had a show for me, and that's what kick-started the majority of my business back when I first started. 2 to 3 times a month, I would pack up my kids, who were 5, 6, 7, and 8 at the time, to go visit their aunt and their new baby cousin in Arizona. I worked, and I worked. Those trips, while accomplishing my home show goals, were not as cost-effective as I had hoped they would be. And they were exhausting, driving to and from Arizona, because these were quick trips, down on a Friday night, home on Sunday, down on a Friday night, sometimes in the morning to have a show that night. At one of my last shows there, my hostess, who had been a guest at 2 shows previous to hers, said to me, "If I were to do this, how would I get started?" I really wasn't sure what to say. I had no intention of sponsoring when I first joined Premier. I had this idea that there were home shows and that there was sponsoring. I didn't really get that they really should go hand in hand. Because at my shows, I was doing a sponsoring activity because I just did my show as I was trained, and as I was trained, I printed Jennifer's script and read it word for word for my first 25 shows. On a clipboard, word for word, read her show. So I did my sponsoring activity. I did my booking activity, but I didn't follow up with anything that came from those. I had this idea, and I thought, share with her? Okay. I answered her questions. Chandra had all kinds of questions, and I answered them as best as I could. I reiterated the parts of my presentation that I had to go, I reiterated parts of my presentation that I had, and told her about the business, the best that I knew at that time. And at that time, I thought, I don't know enough to even share this, so I don't know that I could do it very well. I reiterated the script from my Big Money, Little Money, thinking that might be enough. She said she needed to talk to her husband and that was good enough for the information I had. So I asked if we could follow up with a conference call in a few days with my Premier mom, because she's a pro. Right. Who better to hear about the business than from Jennifer Keller? We conferenced Jennifer, sent her a marketing packet, and within a few weeks I had my first jeweler. This also meant that I had someone to take over the Phoenix area that I had been working, which was perfect because I was about to lose my free hotel because Michelle was moving to Las Vegas. And this was about the time that I let my Premier business fall by the wayside because I hadn't been building it in Orange County where I lived. I'd been building it in Arizona. I didn't restart my business until 2 weeks before my renewal later that year, so I took almost 6 months off. And boy, am I so glad that I did. But it was only after a lot of encouragement from my Premier mom and several prayer-filled days. I still wasn't sure about sponsoring, but I knew that I was supposed to stick with Premier. 7 months later, I sat patiently at my own mom's kitchen table in Utah, waiting for Facebook posts and texts from fellow jewelers to tell me about the 2013 designer trip. This was in the summer of 2012. The minute I found out about the cruise that was coming up that spring, I lined up childcare, which was 9 months in advance, and committed to becoming a designer so that I could take my husband on our first cruise. Remember, I had only sponsored one jeweler, and by accident. I never talked to her. I never followed up to see if she was doing. I saw her on my commission report and saw that she faithfully did 2 shows every month, but I didn't really do much else with her. She rolled off, and by rolled off meaning she didn't renew, and when I found out 2 years later, I think had I kept that relationship with her, I would still have her in my family today, and I would still be able to help her in ways that I thought I should have been helping with all along the way. I just didn't really know what I was doing, and I look back and think I knew exactly what I was doing. I just didn't realize it. So this meant I was starting fresh. I didn't feel like I knew anything more as a 20-month-old jeweler than I did when I was a 2-month-old jeweler. All that had changed was my confidence in Premier as a business. I knew from watching others and looking back on the few successes that I did have, that if I could just find a few key pieces of jewelry that I loved, and if I shared the parts of the business plan that I was passionate about, that my confidence in those things would show, as would my enthusiasm. And it worked. Enthusiasm and passion sell much faster and at a higher rate than any amount of knowledge ever did or will. You need to be excited about what you're doing. You need to be sold out completely on what Premier has to offer and what it can do for you. You need to hold jewelry shows consistently. Doing this will help firm up your Premier foundation. You need to believe that you are doing and can meet a need or many needs in your life. The confidence that can build from being excited, being sold out, and being consistent will show when your face lights up while talking about your Premier business. You don't need to have all the answers. When you signed up, I'm guessing it wasn't because your Premier mom was a walking FAQ sheet. Think back. What piece of Premier got you? I like to say that mine was the 50%. And that is what I do say. It was 50%. I heard that. I knew what that meant. But really, I wanted to be cute and fashionable. I live in Ladera Ranch. Lots of girls are cute and fashionable. I was not one of those cute, fashionable girls. It was something I'd never wanted to be, not something I ever aspired to be. All my sisters are fashionable. I just wanted to know how to wear jewelry, and I didn't. We come in for all different reasons. It's a part of your job when you became a jeweler to share the marketing plan at every single jewelry show, because you don't know what piece of that marketing plan will speak to someone else. You don't have to memorize every part of it. Use a flip chart. Read from a script. Remember, that's what I did for my first 25 shows. Play Blingo with the one-page marketing plan. That page we shared, I share that now as part of my presentation. I do that whole thing, and I play around a bingo with it at the end, and they fill in the squares with all the things about what I talked about, and we play Blingo. I get mostly yes and maybes on all the surveys I did in the 5 shows that I did that at. You can go through the marketing plan on the brochures that Premier provides us, even just these little pieces of paper right here. Remember, we have that full-time marketing department that I talked about a little while ago. People who are well-trained and spent countless hours creating these materials for us to use. Why wouldn't we use them? It's all written down for us. Just go through it. Share it. If you aren't sure your sponsoring activity at your show is great, then practice with your Premier mom. Practice with a Premier sister. You'll know if your activity is working if you're generating yeses and maybes on your survey or registration cards, which means you also need to be utilizing a survey or registration card. And by utilizing, I mean on there asking, are you curious about this business? On a scale of 1 to 5, I don't ever want to see you again and sign you up to be a jeweler. You need to use something. Otherwise, how are you going to know who might be interested or who might know someone who is interested? Wrap your head around the principle of sowing and reaping. The harvest is public. The work is private. I faced this principle a couple of months ago. I recently took 4 months, almost 4 whole months off of working my personal premiere business. I had my first show on July 16th, 18th, something like that, since March. That wasn't a vendor event. So my first presentation in like 4 months. I took nearly 4 months off working my personal premiere business. 4 months, keep that in mind. But during that time, my hiatus, I promoted to a one-diamond designer. When that happened, I didn't want the recognition that came with it. I wanted all the excitement and all everything that came with it to go to Michelle. She was the one who'd been working so hard. She was the one who was making the calls and following up. She was the one with Premiere in her line of sight at every moment of the day. My promotion was a side effect, or so I thought. And I thought that for quite some time. It wasn't until I was chatting with an executive director at Rally that I realized that I too had worked hard. Can I write it down? I can't see when I cry. I too had put in countless hours of phone calls and follow-up and had Premiere in my line of sight. It had just been in the back of my mind for a little while. I had just taken time off for my family and myself. If I had not put in the time and the work previous, Michelle could have still made designer, and she totally would have. I would still be a jeweler, but I wouldn't have been a one-diamond. A side note here, this is one of the reasons I love how Premiere works. If you want to promote, you have to work your business. We're not a pyramid scheme. I don't get to be at the top and build an organization under me. I help build it around me and above me. If you want to build your team, that's great. But if you want other women to experience the joy that can come from being a part of this amazing Premiere Designs family, that is fantastic. Why are you holding back something so wonderful? If you used a skincare product that took away every wrinkle, you would run to every neighbor, post all over Facebook, tell everyone in your family you just found the most amazing product ever. So why do we hold back information about Premiere? Many of us compare ourselves to other jewelers. It's human nature to do so. Try to remember that we all have our own journey. We all have different seasons. Pray for guidance to know where your journey is headed and where you'd like it to go. I pray for my leaders, sisters, and the women on my team by name every day. I want everyone around me to be surrounded by my prayers, because when they are lifted, I am lifted. Last November, I was contemplating my business and whether or not I had what it takes to continue being a mom in Premiere. I asked to be given a new jeweler to work with, but in the same breath, I asked for forgiveness for not being a better mom to the jewelers I'd already been entrusted with. Sometimes being a Premiere mom feels a lot like being a real mom. The next day, I got an out-of-the-blue message from Stephanie Schroeder. She had been a guest, then one-time hostess, almost 2 years earlier. That night, I offered to meet her at Starbucks, share the business with her. She brought her mom, shared it with her mom too. And I left that night with a new jeweler. I should note that I went to that meeting with an attitude of expectancy. I took my computer with me so that I could go through her application together, because why would she need to think about it? I didn't need to think about it. I signed up on the spot. Why would she need to go home and think about it? I went with a positive attitude and kept telling myself, I am a part of something amazing, and I want Stephanie to feel that too. 3 months later, I was, again, on my knees, asking for guidance in my business. I had been working tirelessly to win the Amazing Race challenges that we do at the beginning of every year in this family, to get my consistency challenge shows done, and to work with my team as best as I could at that time. I began to feel like I must not be doing a very good job, because I hadn't sponsored anyone in almost 3 months, and here I was trying to get my team to sponsor. So I asked again to provide me with more opportunities to share the business with someone who needs it. Before I went to bed, I asked my husband to please pray for the same thing. The next day, Gail Lee messages me. She had been a guest, then hostess, nearly 2 years before that. We were Facebook friends. She saw a post about the new jeweler special that was running from Premiere that I posted a few weeks earlier from Regional Rally. I shared the marketing plan, answered her questions, and another amazing woman was added to my Premier family. Another prayer answered. So back to staying the course. If it was right when I prayed about it the first time, and I trusted it the first time, and I lived for it the first time, it's still right now. Don't give up when the pressure mounts. Jewelry shows provide income for an evening, but sharing the marketing plan can provide income for a lifetime and relationships that can last longer than that. So to go along with that, Jennifer mentioned that August is the best time for sponsoring. And Jennifer may have said that, but so will every other senior leader in this company and anybody who's ever sponsored, because the fall is the best time for business in retail, period. That's when people are shopping. That's when people are looking for something to make money to buy Christmas. You know, I signed up at the end of October. It was October 28th, I believe. My kickoff show was November 8th. I made enough money from November 8th to December 13th to not only pay back my investment, which was a story in and of itself, but I was able to pay for Christmas that year with cash. I had a cash Christmas my first year. I had a cash Christmas my second year. I had a cash Christmas this past year. It is amazing to have a cash Christmas with no credit cards. To be able to go buy teachers gifts for Christmas. I have 4 kids. A lot of those kids have 3 teachers because they have a teacher and 2 student teachers. That's a lot of teacher gifts at Christmas time. And I felt so good that I could purchase those gifts with that Premier money that I made. So I know that there are others in the room who have joined Premier in that same time. People are ready. They just don't know that they're ready until you share it. So, in honor of this amazing promotion that Premier is doing, because remember, first time in 30 years Premier's ever discounted the startup fee for Premier. All you need to do is share it. You do not need to know all the answers. You don't need to be able to know the ins and outs of the marketing plan. Read from the information that you're given. Just share it. But to help do that, it's always more fun when you have backup. So Jennifer and I talked today, and I was listening to a Jammies and Jewelry call. If you don't do Jammies and Jewelry's call, Jammy and Jewelry, whatever. JammiesandJewelry.com is the website. There are calls going back a few years for all kinds of different topics about your business. I recommend that you listen to everything you can find, but this one specifically comes from Lisa Self. She is a diamond designer back in Pennsylvania, and she had this great sponsoring call. So if you hear that, you're going to hear some things that I mentioned. I really just wanted to write down her whole thing and share that, but I want you to listen to her training, so I came up with my own words. But you just need to share. Statistically in Premier, it's like 1 in 4 people sign up for the business. So if you talk to 4 people, you know, chances are the next one will sign up. So make yourself a little tracking sheet. Keep track of how many people you've actually talked to. And that doesn't mean, hey, did you know that we make 50%? That's not the end. Share the marketing plan. And when they have to think about it, follow up. Keep a tracking sheet of everyone that you have shared the marketing plan with. And to help you do that, and to reward your efforts, and hopefully help you take advantage of some of this super exciting stuff that's happening in August, we're offering the Quick Share Challenge. I have a little handout for everyone, on cardstock even, so that you don't lose it and it won't get wrinkled and go on your fridge or put it on your mirror. Keep it somewhere in front of you. Every single jeweler in this room and every jeweler who has access to Jennifer's Facebook page or our Keller Family Facebook page will get this. What it is if you bring 6 guests collectively to any of these 7 events over the next 20 days, you get $100 in free jewelry. This isn't results-based. This is activity-based. You bring 6 people to one of these events. Jennifer, myself, Joy Williams, where's she at? And Kathy Yogi. Between the 4 of us, we will be sharing the marketing plan for you at some of these places. So we have live calls. We have 3 live calls, meaning from home. You have them call in. We'll be live. We'll share the marketing plan, ask for questions at the end, help you get through that information. If you can be on the call with them, that'd be great. That way we can refer them back to you. There's Jewel School nights. There are 3 Jewel School nights that we will share the marketing plan at, in addition to Jewel School, so you can bring your guests. They can hear it there. And then a Starbucks meetup. That's with me. And you can bring your guests to Starbucks, grab a drink, we'll sit down, we'll go through the marketing plan together. You have 7 opportunities to bring 6 people. Not 6 people to 7 opportunities. 6 people total, that's it. You bring 6 guests, we just want to A, help you share the marketing plan, and B, get that marketing plan in front of as many people as we can, because Premier is amazing. The things that it has to offer are amazing. Premier works. And people say, oh, things like that don't work. That isn't true. They work if you work. If you don't work, it doesn't work. That's it. End of story. So we want to help you get that in front of everybody. So I'll pass these out. The date is on there, the time is on there. Give us a call if you need anything, but remember, $100 in free jewelry if you can find 6 people to get that in front of. Okay?